Hola a todos, espero que estén muy bien. Voy a pasarles unos videos muy interesantes sobre gestión de proyectos. Básicamente va a ser nuestra clase, esto nos va a servir muchísimo. Me gusta mucho porque está en inglés y esto también te ayuda a ir perfeccionando tu inglés, practicándolo y también si algún día tienes que moverte a algún país donde necesitas hacer proyectos, pues ya tienes la idea de cómo se llaman pues todas las áreas de un proyecto en inglés. Voy a iniciar, te voy a pasar esta información. Posteriormente te voy a dejar unos trabajos. Tienes que ver los videos y en el área de tareas te voy a dejar unos trabajos. Muchas gracias. Vamos a iniciar.
For the new project manager, the essentials, what you need to know to undertake your new responsibilities, are not always obvious. There are so many moving parts, it can be hard to know where to begin. In this course, you'll learn the characteristics that define a project and what the environment and scope of a project are. You'll also learn what your responsibilities are and what you need to understand before planning starts. You'll identify the different types of people who will be involved in the project, its stakeholders, and where to go to access useful information. A recommendation is made for the company to spend more time and resources to improve employee onboarding. The team believes that new employees need to better understand the company goals and workflows and how their respective jobs align with the company's key initiatives. Upper management sign off on the idea, and so it becomes a project. It's a project because it has a specific outcome, creating an addition to the employee's orientation program to focus more on company goals and, in theory, lead to better overall productivity and job performance. Using time and resources, a project should create something that didn't exist before. But there's yet another characteristic to consider. A project must meet a business need. This need can come from many sources, such as a new technology, a change in industry regulations, or a customer request. For example, if customer feedback suggests significant support for a live chat option on your website, then maybe that has identified a business need. Or if employees consistently complain about how time consuming virtual work collaborations can be, perhaps this identifies the need for improvements in the system's network. The business need, whatever it may be, is both the foundation and the justification of the project. It should be the primary focus around which all the other elements of the project revolve. Whatever the time frame, whatever the desired outcome, the business need is the characteristic that must drive the project. New projects aren't launched on a whim. Experienced leaders know that their business reasons for starting a project need to be very clear. Valuable time and resources are at stake and must be used wisely. Before you're handed a project to lead, its value and utility have been assessed and justified. Business reasons for undertaking a project are generally tangible, meaning that it's possible to place a monetary value on the expected outcome. Financial gain is something that you can see and you can touch. So it's no surprise that financial considerations are often the reason for undertaking projects in business. Such economic factors can include increased revenues, improved profit margins, cost savings, and even things like tax considerations and market volatility. Say a company's shipping costs are rising. A team is assembled to analyze the shipping process and look for ways to reduce costs. They discover that their warehouses are still issuing physical picking tickets. They then suggest an automated process requiring the purchase of new software and inventory devices. Despite the initial costs, the financial gain that will be realized from the process change is clear. It's tangible, and the project gets approved. Another tangible reason for undertaking a project is to create a new asset. This is even clearer if the asset you're creating has value in and of itself. If, for example, your project is to design and build a new piece of machinery that will help your manufacturing company increase its output, then that increased output has the potential to support expanded sales and to increase profits. Customer demand is another powerful business reason for undertaking a project. Identifying customer needs, even as they're changing, can mean the difference between the success and failure of a project. Consider the smartphone industry. Each new iteration that comes on the market represents a project undertaken to produce something new. That something then brings value to the company by meeting a customer need, a need that's always in flux. Smartphones get bigger, they get smaller, they get faster and smarter. Each new feature is an attempt to keep pace with customer need, which in turn translates into an increase in customer demand. Business reasons can also be intangible. Improving employee morale, better brand recognition, or creating customer goodwill are examples of intangible value. You may not be able to quantify these reasons in monetary terms, but this doesn't mean they aren't valuable. A company picnic might seem frivolous, but it can help employees feel valued and thus more motivated in their job. Or if your company were to sponsor an event in the local community, this creates community goodwill and publicity. It enhances your company's reputation and possibly creates further customer demand. It's hard to quantify the value of the event in financial terms, but its intangible benefits are recognized, thus leading to an approved project. Projects can require a lot of time, effort, and money. That's why having solid business reasons is so essential to getting a project off the ground. As a project manager, you're responsible for all of the project's moving parts and keeping them connected. A small change to one will have a domino effect on the others. Having a clear understanding of the key responsibilities involved in leading a project will help keep all the interrelated parts working together in harmony. Defining the scope of the project is one of these key responsibilities. The scope is what a project should specifically include and what it shouldn't include. Bear in mind that what everyone visualizes for the project might be different. So defining the scope helps get your team working off the same page right from the start. And by specifying the exact features of the product or service that's being created, you'll prevent misunderstandings that could drain precious time and effort later. Another key responsibility is managing the project budget. A detailed plan of how money will be spent should include a reserve fund to cover the unexpected events that often sidetrack your project. There is also the schedule. Because time is money, the schedule helps keep things on track. The schedule includes the start date, dates for key milestones, and the end date of your project. The schedule can be further broken down into specific activities to make things more manageable. Think of the scope, budget, and schedule as interrelated wheels. The project needs all of them moving together in tandem to get to where you want to go. As the project leader, you must also ensure that quality standards are being met. Referring to the project scope as a guide can help you to focus on the targeted outcomes. Quality checks are needed to make sure that all the features are there and in good working order as agreed. You'll also handle the project resources. This means managing the people, material, and equipment needed to do the work. And in every project, there's an element of risk involved. The risks are the potential events that might negatively affect your project. Managing the fallout from equipment failure or cost overruns is a project manager's responsibility. Part of your plan should include budget and time contingencies to take the risks into account. These 6 areas: scope, budget, schedule, quality, resources, and risks represent the moving parts that you must coordinate. It is also the case that any one or all these areas can be constraints on your project. A constraint is something that is a limiting factor. It will affect the way you need to carry out the work. If you had an unlimited budget and unlimited time, then you could sit back and relax. But coordinating multiple areas under tight constraints is a big challenge. Imagine, right in the middle of the project, you're told the completion date must move forward, as key team members will be needed to work on something else. How can you save time? Do you factor in longer daily working hours with overtime costs eating into the reserve? That's one possible solution. Or are there aspects of the project that could be scaled back to save time? As project manager, it's up to you to work with the team and stakeholders to identify and choose the best options to keep the project's wheels spinning. As you begin managing a new project, you may feel left alone in the wilderness. You have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of people looking to you for guidance, and a lot of weight on your shoulders. But you're really not alone. You're surrounded by resources you can leverage to your and your project's advantage. First among these resources are your project team members. They're on your team for a reason, and that reason is their experience and expertise. Being the PM doesn't mean you're also supposed to be an expert in every phase of the project. In fact, oftentimes, the PM has only a passing expertise in the project area. That's not the job. That's what the team is for. Beyond the team itself, virtually any organization has its grizzled veterans, experienced colleagues, many of whom have been right where you are now. They've led projects. They've made mistakes. They've overcome them, learning as they did. Most are going to be happy to share with you. You can learn from their mistakes and benefit from their successes. Among these colleagues are higher level employees, including the one that has assigned you as project manager. Your company management, in general, and your direct supervisor, in particular, are invaluable sources of information. They've been in your shoes before and likely have the answers you need or can help direct you to someone who can help. Maybe your trouble with a talented team member who isn't collaborating well with others. You know that this team member is a top performer, but how do you get him to work more effectively on the team? Don't hesitate to ask for help. Maybe this individual's manager has experienced the same behavior and can offer you some advice. Someone in your company has already overcome the challenges you now face. You can learn from them, and in doing so, you'll save yourself time and stress. Most organizations also boast in-house experts, even if they aren't available to join your team directly. These colleagues can be consulted or borrowed short-term to lend their expertise to your team. Perhaps they could lead training sessions to share their skills and knowledge, or work one-on-one with one of your team members. Again, senior, experienced colleagues are likely to know just who to turn to. But perhaps your project requires specialized knowledge or resources that simply can't be covered internally. If you must turn to external vendors, you'll want to work with your purchasing department. They'll have knowledge of reliable, reputable sources of the products, services, or expertise you need to see your project through. All these things may seem obvious, but the first days of project management can seem overwhelming as you cope with new duties, new responsibilities, and new working relationships. Knowing that there are ready sources of experience and knowledge standing beside you makes stepping into a PM role a little less daunting and gives your project the best chance of success. As a project manager, you need to know who's invested in your project. Anyone who can affect or is affected by your project is a stakeholder. These are the people who can persuade, coerce, or motivate people to bring about change because they have a stake in the outcome. Conversely, they are also the people who can obstruct or slow down your project's success if they're not on board. This means it's a good idea to know exactly who your stakeholders are right from the start, because good stakeholder management and communication is essential to your project's success. To identify the stakeholders, think about who's interested or invested in your project. Sponsors are among the most critical stakeholders. These are the individuals who fund the project, and they can influence the project from initial scoping right through to the end result. They are closely involved in the project's performance and will require regular status updates. Customers may be stakeholders, and they can be external, buyers of your products and services, or in some cases, internal to your organization, fellow employees who will benefit from your project's success. If, say, your project involves developing new features in one of your products, customers will have direct influence, especially if you're doing market research and asking for customer feedback. It is important to keep in mind that customer satisfaction may be directly related to how they were consulted and engaged throughout the project. Anyone who directly uses the project's product or service is an end user. And end users are important stakeholders that also need to be considered. Although end users are highly interested in the project's outcome, they're not involved directly in the decision making, though engaging end users, for example, through demos and feedback, can help focus the project's development process. Business partners are also key stakeholders. They share risks and opportunities. If they lose focus or pull out, it could set a project back by days or even weeks, or conceivably derail it altogether. Competitors are a set of stakeholders that are unlikely to influence your project directly. However, they might monitor your project, looking for an edge in the marketplace. So, do likewise. Encouraging your team to keep an eye on the activity of competitors may make your project more competitive. And of course, your project team members who perform the project work are key internal stakeholders who have potential to greatly affect a project's progress and outcome. This is especially true for anyone in a decision-making or management role. Stakeholder management is critical at every stage, but especially as you begin. And while some stakeholders are more important than others, key persons at any level can affect the project's progress and outcome dramatically. If you don't consider everyone's expectations right at the start, it will cost you time and money, and maybe your project's ultimate success.